All right, so allow me for a sec to talk about my thoughts on Mickey 17, and I'm saying this too because how I've edited this is that I managed to see this film first, and then Ricardo saw it afterwards, right? So I will talk about it. Well, what you will hear, I should say, will be from my perspective of when I saw it, and what you will hear afterwards will be Ricardo's after the fact thoughts of it because he saw it right after I covered this, right? So slight spoiler. So through the power of editing, let me present my thoughts on Mickey 17, followed by Ricardo's thoughts. So, this is the newest film from Bong Joon Ho. I mean, this is the guy who made, history, film history, as, well, technically the first South Korean director to win Best Director. And his film, being non-English, winning Best Picture, right? As for a film called Parasite, which came out in 2019, which was my favorite film of 2019 and one of my top 10 favorite films of the past decade. And I hold on to that, right? And hopefully I will acquire the Criterion Blu-ray for that very soon, right? Because I absolutely, absolutely love that show, right? And for me, like, let's talk quickly about his work, right? So he's a guy that I have not seen every single film from him, right? I was introduced to Memories of Murder in film school, but I think for many people, our first exposure came with The Host, which I think came out in 2006, right?
Yeah.
Which was a show that admittedly I do not absolutely love. 'Cause I remember when that show came out, everybody heaped a amount of praises, right? But I think for me, the thing that I really admire is kind of the thing that kind of holds it back from it just slightly is the multi-genre approach to things, right? So it's not just a horror, it's not just a monster film, but it's also a family drama. It's also this environmental message film. It's doing a lot though. Like it just how it merges all these like subgenres into it, right? So like for me, while even though I really do enjoy the film, like I don't know, it's not like identity crisis per se, but that's like the weird thing about his movies now. Like it's not just one genre. It's like one, two, three, four genres, and the others how to call it that. So that's how I felt with The Host, and especially the way how they hype it up, like one of the best horror films ever made or best sci-fi films. You watch it like this is kind of more of a like family drama mixed with a creature feature more than anything else, though. You know what I mean? But I don't know about you, but I enjoyed the film, but I didn't love it as like a lot of people did, right? But anyway, I still have not seen Okja. I know, shame on me, I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Yeah, and that also
I
made
heard,
it to the
I heard
Criterion
this
Collection.
is closer to that tonally.
Yes, I'll get to that in my review. That film also is in the Criterion Collection. But yeah, for me, the show that won me over, boy, was Parasite, because that show just the socio-economic theme of it just
for me, Snowpiercer.
relate to me though. Yes, right. I forgot to mention. There was Snowpiercer. Which admittedly I only saw once. I enjoy it, didn't love it, but I enjoy it. Shame on me.
I never watched the
still
TV
haven't
series,
watched the
though.
series, even though we have a boy.
Never watched it. Never watched it.
Yeah, the V Diggs in it, man, and it's like I should watch it because he in it alone is like, nah, I just didn't get the chance. I think like I don't know if the show wrapped up or if it on its fourth season by now. I don't know. I really should check it out, right? But yeah, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, I do admire his work, right? Even though I've not seen all of his films, right? I do like that he takes social and economic themes, right? It clearly stuff that relates to him as a South Korean, right? But he's able to find genres and stories to translate those topics into, right? So even though we're not from South Korea, we could relate, like for example with Parasite. The whole idea of living paycheck to paycheck, the idea of looking at the 1%ers and asking yourself why they have it so good and we have it like shit, right? And then asking yourself, just imagine for yourself, hey, well, how would it be like if I were to live in their home, right? And eat their food, all kind of stuff, right? And that's what Parasite nailed brilliantly, in my opinion, right? It was just so incredibly relatable, right? At least to me and, millions of other people who saw the film, right? So Mickey 17, this kind of came as a surprise to me because I remember, I think like the first time we heard about this or knew about it was through a poster. I think, right, yeah, and the sell at the time was, and still to this day is, Robert Pattinson in a Bong Joon Ho film. like Robert Pattinson. Okay, if you've been looking at his work since what is Good Times? No, not Good Times. The one he did with the Safdie brothers. What's it called?
He did, yeah, that was Good Time.
Good
But he
Time.
did,
Yeah.
no, the first movie I knew him for that was like, oh, this is Persepolis, no, Cosmopolis.
Well, I still haven't seen that. Who did that
Yeah,
again?
I remember watching that and thought it was pretty good.
That wasn't a Cronenberg film. I think I can't remember.
Right.
No,
I think
asking
the
you
son.
if you remember.
Yeah, David Cronenberg. Yeah.
Okay, him. Okay. Lovely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at least I know what I talk about. Yeah, and the whole sell was that it's something involving clones. You know what I mean? So it's like, what? Okay, right?
Yeah.
And then the first trailer dropped, right? And for me, I kind of come to know this trailer by heart because every goddamn time I go to Caribbean cinemas, they keep running that same ad, right? It's the same ad that says that this movie was coming out in January, right? But it got pushed, right? I didn't know the reason why it got pushed to March, but it's like, all right, they come out in March, these things happen, whatever, right? So yeah, finally saw the show, and what it's about, right? So basically, it is a dark comedy, but it's also a sci-fi as well, also a satire as well, right? And didn't know this till after the fact. It's based off of a novel called Mickey 7. So I'm now wondering if the plot of the show followed the book like entirely or mostly straightforward, or if they just took creative liberties because Bong Joon Ho. I don't know. Haven't read the book, right? So yeah. Anyway, so this story is set in 2054, right? So it as I should mention also too, it's a dystopian film as well, right? So there's this planet by the name of Niflheim, right? This frozen kind of tundra planet, right? We have Kenneth Marshall, who is played, quite deliriously by Mark Ruffalo of all people, right? Yeah, so he is this politician who, kind of wants to populate that planet, right? So what he does, he create this large starship, and he has like these applications out for people who just want to work there, like work in the spaceship and possibly populate the planet, right? Once they reach there, right? But even though they want to do that, they have to more or less make sure that the environment is safe, right? They don't want to set up shop and then things go bad, right? So they create something called the Expendable Pro. Well, it's basically this cloning program, right? Which was deemed illegal because a certain someone used it and got away with some crimes, but then him and his two other clones got arrested, right? So on Earth it is banned, right? But Kenneth decided that okay, he want to claim it now, so he will use it on his ship to do his experiments, right? So one of the candidates is a guy by the name of Mickey Barnes, who is played by Robert Pattinson, right? And as the title states, yes, there are 17 versions of him, right? So when we're introduced to Mickey, he is the 17th clone, right? So what it is, right? So this is something that he signed up for. I should mention too, it's set up early on that this guy is just a flat out loser, no accomplishments in life. He just really don't know what he up to in life. He has a friend called Timo who is played by our boy Steven Yeun, right? And they run afoul of this gangster. They say, well, we don't want to get killed or chopped up, literally chopped up, right? So let me just jump on this ship and we make some money, right? But he signs up for this whole expendable thing, right? So what expendable is that it's technically a human guinea pig. So any particular test that is dangerous, like extremely dangerous to humans, he will be out there in the field going about it, right? And the idea is that, all right, he dies, like his body dies, right? Well, he is dead, sorry, right? But they already have the memories of him and also the DNA, and they have like this machine basically that they could basically print. That's what they call it. They could print out a new copy of Mickey, and that's what it is, right? So for the past 16 instances, he's been sent out and he's been exposed to radiation, exposed to extreme cold. On the planet itself, we learn that there are these indigenous creatures, right? This particular race of alien creature. That's the best way I could sum it up, right? And Kenneth and I forgot the character's name, right? But his wife, who is played by Toni Collette of all people, I didn't even know that she was in it, right? They all like, we need to go there, we need to populate this place, right? But throughout the show, we just kind of see the world of this spaceship or starship through his eyes, right? You see him kind of, coming to terms with, wow, this is kind of shit though. Like, why get myself into? Because he, even though he has a girlfriend, right, played by Naomi Aki, right, it's not like he really has any significant time to spend with her, right? Because every time Kenneth or somebody associated with him will just say, here's what, we want to inject this in here, we want to test this thing on you, and well, if you're dead, you're dead. But the idea is that we will take from what it is we did from our experiments with you, and we will just better things, right? So as a wrap up here now, things get pretty interesting, right? Because the 17 character that we meet, right? He is introduced on the planet and he's left for dead, right? But because everybody thought that he was going to die there, they did another print. But fortunately, 17 gets off the planet, right? And he gets back onto the ship and he meets his successor, which is Mickey 18. And because of what went on Earth with how they banned the program, in other words, they can't have two duplicates together. Like, they can't be around because shit could go down, things could go bad and whatnot, right? So they had to kind of try to keep their identities under wrap, and it leads to a whole bunch of shenanigans. And I should also mention too, as a wrap up here, it also includes those same aliens that are on the planet, right? They're not really sure what to do with them. Kenneth, who is established early on to be this asshole, kind of wants to wipe them out, and you just see how things play out from there, right? So the good about this, right? This is Bong Joon Ho pretty much doing what he does best, right? Just taking these kind of out there, kind of weird premises, but doing it in such a way that you buy into it, you kind of understand it, it's logical, it makes sense, but it's still very absurd, it's still very weird, right? And I like that, right? While I was watching this show, I was reminded of, Terry Gilliam's work, and you could see the Terry Gilliam influence in this, right? I saw shades of 12 Monkeys, I saw shades of Brazil, right? Where you showed me this future with all these technological marvels, and like almost like a problem has to be solved, or this is a world where even though things are advanced, there's a lot of problems that need sorting out, right? Because of that, it just kind of creates this sort of like weird unpredictability about things, right? And then you have a character who exists in the world who just trying to make sense of it all, and it just seems very crazy, and he wants to be relieved of this. He wants to be free from it, right? So whether it's like Jonathan Pryce's character in Brazil, or Bruce Willis's character in 12 Monkeys, right? It's always a sense of the world around me, even though it's supposed to be advanced, is kind of weird. It's crazy. It's insane, and I just don't know why I'm here, right? So I felt like the show was really tapping into that, right? I didn't really see it through the character of Mickey, right? Who I would say was played brilliantly though by Robert Pattinson. I mean, again, this guy really shows, yeah, this man have a range. I think by now we've long distanced him as the Twilight guy, whatever his name was, I can't remember right now. He's not him anymore. He's a serious actor. It's not like he trying to get an Oscar or anything like that, but the man just really want to put the Twilight days aside, right? But in this case, he's doing humor. He's reacted to things a lot, but he's also kind of internally kind of processing what's going on, right? So there's a lot of like voiceover narration, right? I know for some people they don't like too much of that. I know you don't like too much of that, but yeah, early warning, it's there, right? But on the one hand, I understand it, because you had to kind of see the world through his eyes. But on the other hand, it's like he just have to explain everything to you, which I understand. But you could kind of show don't tell at the same time too, right? So I felt it was more, in his case, more of him telling it than showing, right? So that's how it is, right? But yeah, as a character, I think that he works. He feels like the type of person who would be flipping out in a situation like this, right? And then when you really think about it, just that situation itself is really, really, really messed up. There's the idea that pretty much only a few people really care about your health and well-being, and everybody else just don't give a shit. It's like, yeah, we want to inject this thing in here. Oh, it may cause you to, die, because it has poisonous, traits in it or something like that, right? But look, it's all about the greater good, man. And it's like, all right, cool. And, because he's a suck-up, he had to kind of go along with it, right? So it's like that, right? Mark and Tony, really add to the absurdity of things, though. So, all right. So this is not a spoiler, but, like, the moment that you see Mark Ruffalo, you will know it instantly. But I might as well say it here. yeah, he challenged Trump. He is a Trump
Okay.
caricature.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
he's that just this buffoon. That's what it is. He's just this buffoon, but he's also an asshole in the way how he just does not care about Mickey. He doesn't care a lot about anybody except for his wife. You know, and he just like the wife is always cuddling him and always like whispering in his ear, and they always like kiss each other, all that kind of stuff, right? So I don't know if Tony Collette is supposed to be Ivana Trump or whatever, or I don't know,
Okay.
but yeah, the idea is that they are shallow, they are self-righteous, they just don't care about nothing, you know what I mean? And I know for some people, like even me at a few moments was like, dude, it's in particular Mark though, you're kind of hamming things up though. I don't know if that's
Right.
the intention, but you being quite hammy in this performance though, you know? So I could see it being, it might it might like let's say some viewers may not like the hamminess of his performance, but because it's just all Trump, it's all Trump in your face and all that, I could kind of
Right.
let
Yeah.
it slide, right? But yeah, at times he does come off a little too cartoonish, right? Even Tony Collette as well, right? But you could tell they're having fun, and you could tell, well, this is the character that they're playing, so okay, so be it, right? I thought that the visuals, I thought they were just very, very well done, right? I didn't see this in IMAX. Yeah, you could actually watch this in IMAX right now, right? But I saw it on a big enough screen. Well, I went Caribbean Cinemas to see it. And yeah, I thought that it just looked great, though. You know what I mean? And it's not just the icy exteriors of the planet, but also, yeah, just the interiors of this spaceship, right? This starship, if you will, right? Or I should say space station, right? For lack of a better term, right? Yeah, it looks great, right? Nothing, nothing too unique or out there, but it's serviceable for what it is, right? I thought that the supporting cast was great as well. I did not expect this, but I like the fact that Mickey have a love interest, and you really
Okay.
see how this whole situation affects her, right? Because
Which
again,
which Mickey?
um,
All the
well,
Mickeys or both of them?
All the Mickeys, like the moment he step
Okay. Right.
onto the ship, the moment he step on, yeah, like he literally fall head over heels over this one gear, right?
I know in the plot line. I know in the plot line it have it well, I don't know if it's spoiler, but I know in the plot line two Mickeys exist at the same time.
Yes. So you see how that
Right.
play out, and then there's another girl. I think she's a French actress. I think this is like an English language debut, right? Very
Right.
very attractive, right? Yeah, there's a thing set up between her and, let me just say, 17 and slash or 18, right? That's the best way I could sum it up, right? And on the subject of that, I like how they play on the 17 and slash or 18 kind of angle, right? It was teased in the trailer, but I was really thinking about it while I was watching the show. But I love that dynamic between the two of them, right? And yes, I love the fact that Robert is playing them as two different characters. I thought that was really cool, right? That they're not the same loser guy. Like, it's the same guy, right? But one person, let me just say, for like just slight spoiler, 18 is going off the awareness of, look, 17 people done came before me, so I going about shit differently. I don't want, like, I need to know what's going on. If I am expendable, I need to know what's going on and prepare myself for whatever happens. So he more resourceful like that, right? Also, Doug, Steven Yeun's performance as well. Even though he doesn't have much to do in the film per se, when he's there, he does his thing, right? So I can't be mad, right? But yeah, as far as just on the writing and the directing points, it really works, right? And just in terms of Bong Joon Ho and his style, I like how it does incorporate the whole socioeconomic stuff as well, right? So,
Right.
it's about Trump, it's about, people working menial jobs to survive, right? And then, of course, now when the whole thing about the creatures, well, the aliens on the planet is revealed, that it's clearly going into Okja territory, like Okja territory, right? Where I don't understand the species. I want to wipe it out, right? And I want to use these creatures for my gain or whatever it is, right? And then you see how things play out there, right? And compared to the monkey, I like that this show understood the style of humor it was going for. It's absurdist humor again, like I said, with compared it to stuff like Brazil and 12 Monkeys. It's going there, right? It's about how insane this whole situation is when, even when stuff is being explained, it's like, yeah, why would you do that? This makes no sense, right? But that's what it's about. It's just you try to make sense of this insanity that you're seeing here, right? And it works, right? And it adds the dark tone of it. Because yeah, it's dark, right? In terms of the tone of it, right? And I think it works, right? But yeah, that being said though, where I felt where I had the where my main gripe with it too, just really came with the story, not so much in how it was told, right? Like for me, I like the fact that I didn't know where the show was going. I just knew just off the trailer what shots to look for, but I didn't really know where the show was going, where the show was going, right? So I was surprised at certain things, right? So I like that, right? But at the same time, and this kind of adds to a problem that a lot of people have, right? So I'll see what it is. A lot of people are gonna go into this show expecting Parasite level quality, and I'll tell you, it's not as good as Parasite. It's not terrible. It's
Yeah,
not a terrible film, but it's not
I
as
don't
good.
expect it. Yeah, I don't expect that to be fair. In my head, when I saw sci-fi, I just compared it to other sci-fis like Okja or Snowpiercer.
Yeah, yeah. But the unfortunate thing is because of how well received, right, universally received, I should say, or universally praised, sorry, Parasite is, it's hard. Even for me, even though I have my expectations kind of low, it's kind of hard to go into this movie and not expect the quality to be that high there. And it's not. So, you will come out of it, if you would take about Parasite in your head, yeah, you will feel kind of let down by it though, because yeah, quality wise, it's not as good as Parasite. Although to be fair, it's a adaptation, right? So okay, fine, right? But I felt with all the twists and turns that was going on, I felt like it was, while it is world building, right? While I do treat it as world building, I don't know, just the story around Mickey being told, I felt like there were numerous moments where you could have understood more about Mickey's plight, right? But instead, it kind of sacrifices that to just show characters be weird, or you have the stuff with just that whole subplot with the whole aliens thing caught me by surprise. I didn't know that shit was in the movie, right? And because it's a huge emphasis on the show, especially when you get to the third act, I was like, all right, well, I didn't see that coming. I didn't expect the Okja stuff, but here we are, okay, right? But I thought it was really gonna just be about Mickey and his whole existential crisis, right? So it's like that. So in other words, while I do admire how the story flowed, right? From moment to moment, I felt like it's almost like the star of the show. Mickey himself was almost like a spectator to everything, right? He wasn't really like the centerpiece of it all. And when they had moments, it's usually to just put him in this weird or uncomfortable situation, and you're just supposed to laugh at it, right? But
Right.
because it's absurdist humor, you had to kind of laugh at how absurd it is, right? But yeah, at times I was like, yeah, this is funny, but oftentimes, like, okay, they really tried a little too hard to be weird, a little too hard to be over the top and crazy. And yeah, you really see it with Mark Ruffalo and, Tony Collette's characters, right? It's almost like they are trying to outact, Robert Pattinson there in terms of what's going on. It's almost like they want to steal the spotlight, if you will, right? So yeah, as I wrap things up though, so again, just this for me, the main problem is just, you know, not enough. Oh, I should say, right. So just to kind of sum up my main issue with the film, I wasn't emotionally invested in his character and the film itself. It
Right.
wants me to be emotionally invested, but I just didn't really feel it, right? I was entertained, don't get me wrong, I was, right? But I wasn't really emotionally attached to it as I was with something like, say, Parasite, for example. So, yeah, I mean, while there is a genuine story arc with Mickey, I still, it didn't really like rope me in as much as I want to, right? And the film as a whole didn't rope me in as much as I had hoped to, right? But then again, and a lot of people bring this up because you're thinking Parasite. This is the man who did Parasite. He wrote, he directed, right? You're expecting this thing to be greater than it is, and then when you see it, it's like, yeah, good, but wish it could be better. That's the issue, right? But that's not to say
Right.
that it isn't worth checking out, though. But I will say lower your expectations. Don't go into this expecting Parasite like Oscar level quality with this though. It is what it is, right? It's dystopian, dark sci-fi comedy. That's what it is, with a kind of a weird social and environmental message sprinkled into it, kind of, So it's a lot of things, but it works. It works for the most part, right? But I just felt like just emotionally, it just didn't rope me in as much as I wanted to, right? Even if it is a dark comedy, I still could have, felt, yeah, just the dread though, just the existential dread that this character is going through. But more or less, you just see him just in a situation, and he just like, again, he's just a suck up. Just like, all right, cool, yeah, inject this thing into me. Yeah, I'll drink this and puke and whatnot. And the idea is that you had to test this person's blood or whatever it is for toxins or whatever. And that's a joke, right? So that's what it is, right? But again, the performances are decent across the board. I mean, the direction is strong. Writing is good for the most part, right? But again, this is no Parasite, right? So just know that going into it, right? Now, is this gonna be like is this gonna be revered years later as one of the best, I don't know, like sci-fi comedies or sci-fi satires ever? I don't know. I can't really see that for sure, right? And that's another thing
Right,
that I was thinking about while I was watching this, right? Like, will I go back to this? Will I look at this the same way how I look at 12 Monkeys or Brazil in terms of
right, right,
like
right.
sci-fi, right? That's the genre of it in general, right? But I don't know. Maybe in the long run, but I honestly don't see that right now because again, I just felt like the show just could have done more emotionally. And I should also say, more thematically as well, right? There should have been something else going on as well too that could make it stand out from the pack, right? In terms of just this style of comedy, just the style of sci-fi and whatnot, right? But yeah, for what it's worth, I enjoy it. I enjoy it for what it is. It didn't feel like a waste of time or money. And speaking of time, just as I wrap things up, right? Funny thing, when the movie ended, when the credits started rolling, I tell myself, this out of the blue, I just asked myself, I wonder if this movie is 2 hours and 17 minutes. Then when I went to him, I went to my Wikipedia, I was like, yep, I was absolutely correct. Movie is 2
Right.
hours and 17 minutes. Get it? Two twins, 17, 17, ha ha ha, right? Get it?
Right,
Right?
right,
So
right.
that's what it is, right? So rating wise for me, I'll give this a decent 3.5 out of 5, man. It's worth checking out. It's worth checking out. If you're a fan of Bong Joon Ho, you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it. If you're like if like the one thing you know about him is Parasite, you think Parasite is one of the greatest films ever, like I do, I would say go into this film here with the expectations low, and you'll admire it. You'll enjoy it for what it is, right? But not say that this should be as great or even better than Parasite, but again, because of how big of a deal that movie was, it's hard not to compare it to this, even though it's like two different films, right?
Right.
As far as Robert Pattinson goes, boy, like I just want to see this guy just continue to grow as an actor, Dread. Like I can really tell, like this was him taking a risk, right? Him go, teaming up with his director in this weird sci-fi satire, right? It's almost like he challenged himself to do that. And I think for the most part, yeah, he succeeded. But like really show his acting range. He willing to just throw himself out there, right, and just do what he's required to do, right? So I will give him, nothing but praise for his performance, right? But as far as this show in the long run being like one of the greats as far as sci-fi films or dystopian films or even like sci-fi comedies, I can't really see, right? But I guess in time we'll see, right? All right. So now that my thoughts are out of the way, I did the synopsis for that for the show already. So Ricardo, take it away. Your thoughts on Mickey 17?
Yeah, I liked it. It was fun enough. Seeing the characters play off each other. It's zaniness, and what happens that I had. I haven't actually read the book. But from what I understand, the book is really different from this. Not just the extra 10 deaths of Mickey, right? It's a bunch of different changes. What happens to characters? Who this character is? They basically invent a couple characters, and yeah, Bong Joon kind of just add his own stuff, and he kind of just take a like from Algada, he take a flamethrower to the plot and change a lot of stuff, which is not necessarily a bad thing because he makes something like interesting, more on the nose conceits when it comes to like class struggle and ideas of power and exploitation, and it works in that way. But in terms of like just the set pieces and how silly some of the deaths were, it really works. I I'm in the camp that don't really care for Mark Ruffalo's performance. Like I really liked him in the one with what you call she, um the Frankenstein monster movie, but with more sex. Oh gosh, last year. Really liked him in that. But in this, I don't know. I wasn't feeling him at all. He's just playing delusional, and there's a little too on the nose conceit of Donald Trump kind of things, which just kind of coming across as just lazy, and not really saying anything interesting on its own right. But I suppose it's funny. But for me, it wasn't funny. Who he was playing against as well? She did really bring it. Oh God, I forget her name. She was in Snowpiercer. Uh, that wasn't really holding for me. But overall, Pattinson was really good in this. I had a lot of fun with it in general. And yeah, rating, I give it like a 7 out of 10. It was a cool enough conceit. Nothing blew my mind away. Would I have liked something closer to the book? I don't know. Like, I have no idea. But I felt something a little more serious in terms of tone would have worked a little better for me. But I get why. I kind of understand some of the changes, and like why somebody like Bong Joon Ho would make so many changes. But yeah, sorry. I think Okja, does a better job with the conceit of this playing on exploitation systems kind of thing, much better than this did. I don't know, but it's a different story, and it doing its own thing. So yeah, but rating still a 7 out of 10. I dug it.
All right. So quick question. So you actually dug the dark comedy of this film, right? Or it
Yeah,
you
yeah,
actually
yeah.
care for it?
It's the biting sardonic nature of the material now. Like that works. Like that works for what it was trying to do and say, and it give it the nature of the material. But again, if it wasn't, if it, I felt if it was played with a more interesting tone, or a more interesting, more serious tone, that might have worked a little better for me. I don't know. But again, because I haven't read the book and I don't know what it is, I just have some YouTubers or something like that, their opinions on it, right? I haven't actually read the book to myself, so I wouldn't know otherwise. But I dug it for what it was trying to do.